Renaissance humanism was a cultural, intellectual, and educational movement that emerged during the Renaissance period in Europe, roughly spanning from the 14th to the 17th centuries. It was a revival of interest in classical Greek and Roman literature, philosophy, and art, which had largely been neglected during the Middle Ages. Key characteristics of Renaissance humanism. Classical antiquity. Humanists of the Renaissance looked to the works of ancient Greek and Roman scholars, writers, and philosophers for inspiration. They studied and imitated classical texts, fostering a renewed interest in the works of authors like Plato, Aristotle, Cicero, and Virgil. Human-centered approach. Renaissance humanists emphasized the importance of human potential, dignity, and individuality. They believed in the capacity of humans to reason and create, advocating for a focus on worldly matters and the improvement of human life. Education. Humanists believed that education should go beyond religious and theological studies, which were dominant during the Middle Ages. Instead, they promoted the study of languages, literature, history, rhetoric, and the arts to create well-rounded individuals, known as humanists. Liberal arts. Renaissance humanists championed the liberal arts, which encompassed grammar, rhetoric, logic, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. The goal was to cultivate a broad-based education that would develop critical thinking and understanding of the world. Rediscovery and translation. Humanists actively sought out and preserved ancient manuscripts, which had been largely forgotten or hidden away in monasteries and libraries. They translated these texts into the vernacular languages, making them accessible to a broader audience. Individualism. The Renaissance humanists celebrated the achievements of individuals and emphasized the importance of personal accomplishments. This belief in individualism contributed to the rise of prominent figures in various fields, such as literature, art, and science. Secularism. While not entirely rejecting religion, humanists sought to balance their faith with a focus on the here and now. They explored secular topics and encouraged a more worldly and rational perspective on life. Renaissance humanism had a profound impact on the development of European culture, influencing literature, art, architecture, science, and politics. It played a crucial role in shaping the Renaissance as a period of great intellectual and artistic achievement, paving the way for the modern age. Some of the notable humanists during this period include Erasmus, Petrarch, Pico della Mirandola, and Leonardo da Vinci, among others. In English literature, Renaissance humanism had a profound impact on the literary works and intellectual climate of the period. Humanist ideas, inspired by the revival of classical literature, influenced the themes, styles, and content of English literary works during the Renaissance, roughly 15th to 17th centuries. Some key aspects of how Renaissance humanism manifested in English literature are as follows. Classical influences. English writers of the Renaissance, like their European counterparts, looked to ancient Greek and Roman literature for inspiration. They studied and imitated classical forms and styles, leading to a resurgence of classical motifs and allusions in their works. Focus on the individual. Renaissance humanism emphasized the dignity and potential of the individual. English writers, such as Sir Thomas More, Sir Philip Sidney, and William Shakespeare, explored the inner thoughts, emotions, and motivations of their characters, reflecting the human-centered perspective of the era. Education and the liberal arts. Humanists believed in the value of education in the liberal arts. This emphasis on a well-rounded education is evident in literary works of the time, as characters were often portrayed as well-educated and knowledgeable in various fields of study. Translation and vernacular literature. Just like Petrarch and other humanists in Europe, English humanists also engaged in the translation of classical texts into the vernacular language. Works by authors like Geoffrey Chaucer and Sir Thomas More were instrumental in promoting the use of English as a literary language, helping establish it as a medium for artistic expression. Sonnet tradition. The sonnet form, popularized by Petrarch in Italy, found its way into English literature. English poets, notably Sir Thomas Wyatt and Henry Howard, Earl of Surrey, adapted the Italian form into the English sonnet, which later had a profound influence on William Shakespeare's sonnets. Humanist drama. Humanism influenced the development of English drama, particularly during the Elizabethan era. Playwrights like Christopher Marlowe and William Shakespeare explored complex human emotions and moral dilemmas in their tragedies and comedies, reflecting the humanist concern for the individual experience. The Renaissance essay. The essay form, characterized by the exploration of ideas and personal reflections, became prominent during the Renaissance. Writers like Sir Francis Bacon and Michel de Montaigne, though not English, their works were widely read in England, popularized the essay as a means of expressing humanist ideas and engaging in intellectual discourse. Renaissance humanism in English literature contributed to a flourishing of creativity and intellectual exchange. The period witnessed the rise of some of the most celebrated literary figures in history, producing timeless works that continue to be studied and appreciated today. The exploration of human nature, individualism, and the celebration of knowledge and education became hallmarks of Renaissance humanism in English literature. Let's explore an example of Renaissance humanism in English literature through the works of William Shakespeare, one of the most celebrated playwrights of the period. Example: William Shakespeare's Sonnets. William Shakespeare (1564–1616) was a prominent figure during the English Renaissance and is often considered the epitome of a Renaissance man due to his diverse talents and intellectual pursuits. His collection of 154 sonnets, published in 1609, is a prime example of how Renaissance humanism influenced English literature. Human-centered themes. Shakespeare's sonnets delve into the complexities of human emotions, such as love, jealousy, desire, and betrayal. They explore the inner thoughts and experiences of individuals, emphasizing the humanist focus on the individual's inner world and the rich tapestry of human emotions. Influence of Petrarchan sonnet form. Shakespeare's sonnets were heavily influenced by the Italian poet Petrarch, who popularized the sonnet form. Shakespeare adapted and expanded upon the Petrarchan sonnet structure, creating what is now known as the Shakespearean, or English, sonnet, with a unique rhyme scheme ABABCDCDEFEFGG. Love and beauty. Many of Shakespeare's sonnets are centered around themes of love, beauty, and the passage of time. They celebrate the beloved's beauty and grapple with the idea of immortality through poetry, reflecting the Renaissance humanist fascination with the beauty of the individual and the human experience. Celebration of language. Renaissance humanists emphasized the value of eloquence and the power of language. Shakespeare's sonnets showcase his mastery of language and his ability to use it to evoke powerful emotions, making him an exemplar of the humanist ideals of rhetoric and expression. Individualism and subjectivity. Shakespeare's sonnets often have a personal and introspective tone, with the speaker expressing his feelings, thoughts, and experiences. This subjectivity is characteristic of Renaissance humanism, which valued the uniqueness of individual experiences and perspectives. Mythological and classical allusions. In some sonnets, Shakespeare incorporates mythological and classical references, drawing inspiration from the classical works that were revered by Renaissance humanists. These allusions add depth and richness to the poems, exemplifying the humanist interest in reviving classical themes. Eternal fame and immortality. Renaissance humanists were concerned with their legacy and the idea of achieving immortality through their contributions to literature and culture. Shakespeare's sonnets also explore themes of art's ability to preserve beauty and love beyond the confines of time, reflecting the humanist desire for lasting fame. Shakespeare's sonnets are a testament to the influence of Renaissance humanism on English literature. Through these poems, he captures the essence of human emotions and experiences, celebrating the individual and the power of language to convey profound thoughts and feelings. The sonnets continue to be celebrated for their timeless themes and the universality of human emotions they explore. Let's continue exploring the influence of Renaissance humanism in English literature through another example, focusing on the works of Sir Francis Bacon, a prominent philosopher, statesman, and essayist during the Renaissance. Example: Sir Francis Bacon's essays. Sir Francis Bacon (1561–1626) was a leading figure in the English Renaissance and is often considered one of the founders of modern empirical science and the scientific method. He was also known for his philosophical and literary works, particularly his essays. Emphasis on knowledge and education. Renaissance humanists, including Bacon, valued education and believed in the pursuit of knowledge across various fields. Bacon's essays reflected this belief by discussing a wide range of topics, including studies, learning, and the importance of knowledge for personal and societal growth. Utilization of the essay form. Bacon's essays were instrumental in popularizing the essay as a literary genre in English literature. His essays were concise and focused on a single theme, presenting his ideas and reflections in a clear and straightforward manner, which aligns with the humanist emphasis on effective communication. The study of human nature. Bacon's essays often explored the complexities of human nature, including themes such as ambition, friendship, truth, and knowledge. By examining these aspects of human behavior, Bacon engaged in a humanistic exploration of the individual and society. Application of rational inquiry. Renaissance humanists emphasized the use of reason and rational inquiry as a means of understanding the world. Bacon's essays often presented practical observations and sound advice, encouraging readers to employ reason in their daily lives. Influence of classical thought. Like other humanists, Bacon was well versed in classical literature and philosophy. His essays incorporated references to ancient Greek and Roman thinkers, such as Seneca and Epicurus, demonstrating his respect for classical wisdom and the importance of studying the ancients. Civic engagement and moral philosophy. Bacon's essays also touched on matters of civic life and governance. He explored ethical questions, advocated for good governance, and discussed the responsibilities of rulers and citizens, showing the humanist concern for improving society through intellectual and moral contributions. Empirical approach. Bacon's philosophical and scientific works, such as Novum Organum, advocated for an empirical approach to understanding the natural world. This empirical mindset, influenced by Renaissance humanism, marked a significant departure from the scholastic methods of the Middle Ages. Bacon's essays exemplify the Renaissance humanist pursuit of knowledge, rational inquiry, and the exploration of human nature and society. His contributions to the essay form and his exploration of various topics have left a lasting impact on English literature, philosophy, and the development of modern thought. His work reflects the spirit of Renaissance humanism by engaging in intellectual discourse, celebrating the potential of human reason, and seeking to improve society through knowledge and education. Let's continue exploring the influence of Renaissance humanism in English literature through the works of Christopher Marlowe, a renowned playwright and poet of the Elizabethan era. Example: Christopher Marlowe's Dr. Faustus. Christopher Marlowe (1564–1593) was a contemporary of William Shakespeare and a significant figure in the English Renaissance drama. His play, Dr. Faustus, exemplifies how Renaissance humanism influenced literature during the period. Individual ambition and quest for knowledge. Dr. Faustus revolves around the central character, Drive. Faustus, a scholar who seeks knowledge beyond the confines of traditional education. Faustus embodies the Renaissance humanist ideal of individual ambition and the thirst for knowledge. Humanist tragedy. The play follows the classic tragic structure, reflecting the influence of ancient Greek and Roman drama, which Renaissance humanists admired. The tragic flaw of Faustus, his excessive ambition and desire for power, leads to his downfall, exemplifying the humanist concern with human nature and its limitations. Renaissance humanist themes. Dr. Faustus explores themes such as the pursuit of knowledge, the relationship between human beings and the divine, the conflict between good and evil, and the consequences of individual actions. These themes reflect the intellectual and philosophical inquiries of the Renaissance humanists. Individualism and free will. The play highlights the importance of individual choice and free will. Faustus, driven by his desire for knowledge and power, makes a pact with the devil, thus showcasing the humanist notion of individual agency and moral responsibility. Knowledge of classical literature. Marlowe was well versed in classical literature, and this knowledge is evident in Dr. Faustus. The play draws on the medieval German legend of Faust and incorporates elements of ancient Greek tragedy, showcasing Marlowe's familiarity with classical drama and his ability to infuse it with Renaissance ideas. Renaissance humanist tragic hero. Faustus can be seen as a Renaissance humanist tragic hero, embodying the aspirations and struggles of the individual in a changing world. His intellectual pursuits, yearning for greatness, and eventual tragic fall resonate with the humanist concerns of the era. Language and rhetoric. Marlowe's mastery of language and rhetoric in Dr. Faustus is a reflection of the Renaissance humanist emphasis on eloquence and effective communication. The play's poetic and dramatic language engages the audience and captures the complexity of the human experience. Marlowe's Dr. Faustus stands as a significant example of how Renaissance humanism influenced English literature, particularly drama. The play's exploration of individual ambition, the pursuit of knowledge, and the consequences of choices reflect the humanist values of the time. Marlowe's literary contributions, alongside those of his contemporaries, contributed to the flourishing of English Renaissance literature and the enduring legacy of humanistic thought in the literary canon. Let's delve into another example of Renaissance humanism in English literature, this time focusing on the works of Sir Philip Sidney, a prominent poet, courtier, and soldier during the Elizabethan era. Example: Sir Philip Sidney's Astrophil and Stella. Astrophil and Stella is a sonnet sequence written by Sir Philip Sidney, composed of 108 sonnets and 11 songs, first published posthumously in 1591. This work exemplifies how Renaissance humanism influenced English literature, especially in the context of love poetry and individual expression. Exploration of human emotions. Astrophil and Stella delves into the complexities of love, desire, and emotional turmoil experienced by the speaker Astrophil in his pursuit of the beloved Stella. The sonnets reveal the depths of human emotions and desires, echoing the Renaissance humanist celebration of individual feelings and experiences. Individualism and subjectivity. Sidney's sonnet sequence reflects a highly personal and introspective approach to poetry. The speaker's emotions and thoughts are at the forefront, capturing the humanist emphasis on individualism and the inner world of the poet. Influence of Petrarchan tradition. Like Shakespeare, Sidney was influenced by the Italian poet Petrarch in the Petrarchan sonnet form. Astrophil and Stella adapted the Petrarchan conventions, expressing unrequited love and the beauty of the beloved, while infusing it with English language and style. Education and literary artistry. As a humanist, Sidney emphasized the value of education and the liberal arts. His sonnets showcase his mastery of rhetoric, imagery, and poetic devices, highlighting the importance of eloquence and literary craftsmanship. Love as an object of study. Renaissance humanists considered love as a subject of intellectual inquiry. Sidney's sonnets engage in a philosophical examination of love, analyzing its effects on the individual and its relationship to reason and emotion. The role of poetry. Sidney's sonnets explore the power and purpose of poetry. The speaker, Astrophil, believes that poetry can express his emotions and immortalize the beloved, reflecting the humanist belief in the ability of literature to preserve human experiences and emotions. Connection to the courtly tradition. Sidney's poetry also draws from the courtly love tradition, which celebrated refined, idealized love between a knight and a lady. This connection reflects the influence of medieval themes on Renaissance humanism, as humanists often look to the past for inspiration. Sidney's Astrophil and Stella is a remarkable example of Renaissance humanism in English literature. The sonnet sequence captures the spirit of the era, with its celebration of individual emotions, pursuit of knowledge and eloquence, and the interplay of classical and medieval influences. Through his work, Sidney contributed to the rich tapestry of Renaissance literature, leaving a lasting impact on the development of love poetry and humanist thought in English literature. Let's explore another example of Renaissance humanism in English literature, this time focusing on the works of John Milton, one of the most significant writers of the 17th century and a key figure in the English Renaissance. Example: John Milton's Paradise Lost. Paradise Lost is an epic poem written by John Milton and published in 1667. This monumental work exemplifies how Renaissance humanism influenced English literature in the form of epic poetry and philosophical exploration. Emphasis on individualism and free will. Paradise Lost grapples with the concept of human free will and individual choices. The poem explores the fall of man and the rebellion of Satan, highlighting the humanist concern with the consequences of human actions and the struggle between good and evil. Rational inquiry and reason. Milton's poem reflects the humanist belief in the power of reason and rational inquiry. The character of Satan, despite his rebellion against God, is portrayed as a complex figure with intellectual prowess, demonstrating the Renaissance fascination with the capacity of human reason. Humanist themes and ethical questions. Paradise Lost delves into profound ethical questions, such as the nature of good and evil, the role of obedience and disobedience, and the pursuit of knowledge. These themes align with the humanist concern for moral philosophy and the exploration of human nature. Influence of classical epics. Milton was deeply influenced by classical epics, such as Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, and Virgil's Aeneid. Paradise Lost follows the conventions of epic poetry, incorporating grand themes, elevated language, and heroic characters, while infusing it with Christian theology and humanist ideals. Celebration of the human spirit. Despite the tragic fall of Adam and Eve, Paradise Lost celebrates the resilience and potential of the human spirit. The poem explores human aspiration, creativity, and the capacity for redemption, reflecting the humanist belief in the dignity of the individual. Language and eloquence. Milton's masterful use of language, imagery, and poetic techniques in Paradise Lost reflects the humanist emphasis on eloquence and the power of literature to convey profound ideas and emotions. Cultural and intellectual engagement. Milton was deeply engaged with the intellectual and political debates of his time. Paradise Lost incorporates discussions on religious and political issues, reflecting the humanist desire for active involvement in cultural and societal affairs. Paradise Lost stands as one of the most significant works of English literature, exemplifying the influence of Renaissance humanism on epic poetry, philosophy, and the exploration of profound ethical and theological questions. Through his magnum opus, Milton contributed to the rich legacy of Renaissance literature, showcasing the enduring impact of humanist thought on the intellectual and artistic endeavors of his time. Let's continue exploring another example of Renaissance humanism in English literature, this time focusing on the works of Ben Jonson, a prominent playwright, poet, and literary figure during the Renaissance. Example: Ben Jonson's Volpone. Volpone is a satirical comedy play written by Ben Jonson and first performed in 1606. This play exemplifies how Renaissance humanism influenced English literature in terms of satire, social commentary, and the exploration of human vices and follies. Human flaws and social satire. Volpone is a biting satire that exposes the greed, hypocrisy, and moral corruption of its characters. The play uses humor and wit to criticize the vices and follies of human beings, reflecting the humanist concern for ethical behavior and the moral improvement of society. Rationality and reason. The characters in Volpone often use rational argumentation and clever tactics to achieve their goals. This emphasis on reason and logic aligns with Renaissance humanism's celebration of human intellect and its capacity for shaping the world. Language and rhetoric. Jonson's skillful use of language and rhetoric in Volpone reflects the humanist interest in eloquence and effective communication. The characters' verbal exchanges and witty repartees showcase Jonson's mastery of language, a hallmark of Renaissance humanist literature. Influence of classical comedy. Jonson drew inspiration from classical Roman comedy, particularly the works of Plautus and Terence. Volpone follows the conventions of classical comedy, incorporating elements such as mistaken identity, disguises, and social critique, while adapting them to the social context of early modern England. Humanist themes of individualism and identity. Volpone explores the complex individual identities of its characters, each driven by personal motives and desires. The play celebrates the individual's agency and exposes the consequences of pursuing self-interest at the expense of others. Critique of social hierarchies. Volpone